honestly love to just kind of dive in right at the beginning here. Like, lay it out for me. Like, what is Sweet Carrot? And then more so, what all do you do?
Okay. That's a lot.
Yes, we are opening up the floodgates.
All right. So I like where we're going to go with this because Sweet Carrot started, I'll tell you the story, but it started a long time ago as an idea in my catering company. And then it evolved into a bricks and mortar restaurant. And then it became, a casualty of COVID in some ways. And now it's reborn. So where do you want me to start? Because there's a lot and there's just like so many good chewy things in that.
So I guess even just to make sure that, like, and I'm sure we're going to tell the story, we're going to catch up the timelines and everything. But even just as a start, like, are you still like leading Sweet Carrot, the head of Sweet Carrot? Or is that like, hey, I started that thing and now I've actually moved on to this other thing I do? Like,
no. So my day job before Sweet Carrot was 28 years ago. I started a catering company here in Columbus called Two Caterers. Started with a friend. There were two of us. Voila, two caterers. That lasted a couple of years. She moved to California. And then fast forward, I have this hospitality company that's catering events. We have venues. And then I bought a food truck on Craigslist that said, I think it said, food truck used cheap, as is.
Perfect.
It was in Akron. I knew someone in Akron. I bought this thing sight unseen, and they drove it down. So anyway, that's kind of like the journey of how I ended up in the hospitality or the restaurant business. But Sweet Carrot is actually, if you take Two Caterers, which is the name of my company before we rebranded, and scramble the letters, we came up with Sweet Carrot.
I love that. Yeah. Okay.
So yes, I started it.
Yeah.
And I still own it, even though during COVID, we ended up having to close the last restaurant, which our flagship restaurant was at Grandview and Fifth, which is where everybody knows it.
Yep.
And what we did is I think of it as trimming back a shrub or a tree and getting rid of everything that's dead and allowing it to live and then regrow. So during COVID, we just trimmed it back, and I was fortunate enough that I had this hospitality business where it was born from in the first place, and we brought it back home, and we've been nurturing it, and now we're getting ready to relaunch it. So when you reached out, it was so cool because so many people just miss the brand so much. They don't realize that we're still around, and they really don't know that we're working this year on what that relaunch will look like. Okay. So it was great timing.
So not to jump too far ahead of anything, because I still want to dive, go back in the time machine and hear the entire story and all the details. But like, when you say like that, one, people weren't sure if you're still around and you're also doing a relaunch, what exactly does that mean? Have you guys...
Let's do this. Let me catch you up.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Sweet Carrot restaurant. We got up to 3 locations. First location was at the original Rife's Market, which if you're from Columbus, was this old grocery store, had been there for 70 some years at the corner of 5th and Grandview Avenue. And I had this food truck, which was just taking off. And we really, honestly, I did buy it on a lark. I thought, like, we'll turn this into a mobile kitchen. It'll be just something fun for the catering business. And we did this, we did the Columbus Arts Festival. And we're like, let's take it to that. So we came up with a menu just for the Columbus Arts Festival. And it just, for, 3 days long, there was a line like wrapped around. And I knew we were onto something when Sunday, after the Arts Festival, I'm sitting at Lindy's, and I hear this table next to me talking about this new awesome food truck called Sweet Carrot. And I was like,
that's amazing.
Oh my God, this is me. It's a podcast, but this is me going, oh my God, with my face. And so it was so exciting. So we're like, we're onto something. So then I ended up finding that piece of property. I was at the stoplight on 5th Avenue, and I'm looking over at this really cool old funky building, and I'm thinking, if I could find a property like that, I would do bricks and mortar. That would be it. So I get back to the office, and I click open my email, and there is, and I'm not making this up, it's Columbus Business First article, and it says, Rife's Market closing after 70 some years. It's like the hair, stood up on my arms. And I raced back to Rife's and introduced myself to the Mary Kay Rife, who owned the grocery store. She was like 3rd generation. And I'm like, I want this. This is what I want to do here. And I ended up buying the building from them. Incredible. So that's how we took this little food truck idea into bricks and mortar restaurant.
Yeah. And then you said, obviously, the brick and mortar then that process changed during COVID.
Yeah. So, well, let's turn this into all the crazy shit I learned by being in business.
Absolutely.
Let's go there.
Yes.
You can't see the bruises. Most of them have faded, but I got the shit beat out of me
Right.
from this whole
Very
thing,
fair.
right? And
Yes.
COVID didn't have anything to do with it.
Okay.
So opened this cool restaurant in 2015, and literally friends and I, my husband, his friends, I mean, we built a lot of the inside of this restaurant ourselves. Like we made tables, we made the light fixtures, we hand painted the artwork. A good friend of mine did all the brand and design work, Marita. So a lot of me and my friends went into opening this restaurant, and it just took off. And the Columbus Dispatch review was, I'll never forget this. The reviewer said it was like if Wes Anderson had a restaurant, it would look like this. And I'm,
That's
like,
fun.
oh my gosh, they get me. So we opened this super cool restaurant. It was very successful, like right out of the gate. And then, we're at this time in Columbus, Ohio, when there's a lot of fast casual brands growing, a lot of pressure, I think we were open 3 months when Kroger asked us if we would do a line of prepared foods to sell in Kroger. I'm like, whoa, pump the brakes. But in my head, I'm like, we're going to grow. Because you see all these iconic brands growing, right? Like Jenny's is growing, and you have Hot Chicken Takeover is growing, and there's all these great little fast casual brands, and I'm like, we got to do that. So instead of getting everything right, getting the right team together, decided to open a second one, which opened really strong.
Yeah.
And then we opened a third one, and it wasn't so strong.
What's the timeline of that like?
Is that
over like
I opened
6
like
years,
3
or?
restaurants in 5 years.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So then what comes from that? As you're we're riding that train of
Besides the
excitement.
emotional scars?
Yes. Aside from the internal damage.
Okay, let's pull that apart. What came from that is, first of all, it wasn't the brand that was the problem. We still have so much brand loyalty, hence the second part of this conversation is where do we go from here?
Yeah.
But for me, I had to take this amazingly hard look at who I am as an entrepreneur, because I am very entrepreneurial. And there's so many cool things about that. And there are so many things that if, as an entrepreneur, we don't figure out how to soften it or harness it or get the tiger by the tail, then it just turns around and eats our face off. Mm-hmm. And opening 3 restaurants that quickly was basically the tiger eating my face off. So gotcha. What did I learn? Can't do it alone. A lot of those brands had really amazing teams with really deep experience that I didn't have, right? So I'm an ideator and a visionary kind of person, but I didn't have the team. So I was like literally carrying this thing on my back and the backs of my team at Together & Company, or 2 caterers at the time. And they didn't buy into that, right? So it was insanity. Like the amount of hours I was working to try to even open the first location, and then a second and a third. And I started to build a team. And the second issue I ran across was it wasn't a culture. It wasn't the same culture. I thought whatever I did, the culture would follow. And I really struggled with that. So I'm going to pause for a second. Yeah. I'm going to ask you, because you look like you're really relating to this.
Yes.
Can you share a time? Like, why is that resonating with you about culture?
About a billion different things, and I'll try to explain it without taking up a next hour on me here.
No, I want to know.
I definitely relate in the ideation, visionary, like a lot of the stuff that I do and have done for the last decade. I often land in the position of creative director, or if it's in video production or something, just the director, right? And so I vastly always lean into storytelling, branding, all that sort of stuff is 100% up my alley. But the way that myself and my team over the years have always tried to focus on things is a balance of what's the culture. Mm-hmm. What does this actually feel like to do? Because in any business realm, in any world of video production or creative service work in general, I feel like it's so easy to kind of just be what's next, let's go. And then it's just let's just check this off the list, get to the bottom dollar, get the thing done. It doesn't matter what it feels like to do. And so our focus from day one, as we were scrapping together kind of effectively teaching ourselves how to do all this stuff, that was what we really chiseled away on a lot, was how does this feel to do? But like finding that balance for me, especially now after learning all that I've learned, same thing that you're saying of like, yeah, you have all these scars and you sure do learn some lessons from them. Via the scars that I have learned from, I now can sit here and say like, yeah, like I really do focus on a healthy balance of the vision and what story are we telling and why, the purpose behind that. Like that is absolutely my bread and butter. Like that is where my brain goes all the time. But then balancing that with, okay, let me make sure I'm doing this in a logical way that one is practical for me to accomplish and to pull off, but more so, what is the experience that we have during this?
And see, as a visionary, and I'm using that in terms of not like, oh, we're so visionary.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, there's integrators in this world, people who get things done, work in the middle, and then the people who ideate.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, but I want to live on the idea side, and then dig the ditches.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, like, I'll go pack box lunches or bake bread all day long. Nobody wants me to do that anymore. But I don't want to be in the middle. I don't want to have to take the concept and then institute the processes. And it,
for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's where it becomes, if you don't have the right people in those seats, that can completely screw with your culture as an organization. Mm-hmm. If you don't have the people doing what they need to be doing, what they're great at and they love, and they're in a clearly defined seat, like everything goes south.
Right.
Nobody wants to go to work.
Yes.
So what happens when you are in the wrong seat? Like when you're forced to sit and do, basically like count matchsticks.
Yeah.
Like, is everyone around you crawling out of their skin?
Yeah.
Because you're not happy.
That's and that exact process is stuff that I have dealt with, like that, what I would call like the burnout of. Right. Mm-hmm. Of like over the years of like, there's been a couple different chapters of time basically where because we've ultimately always been like, my team and I have always been relatively like DIY with our methods. Right. It's always been like, we're not some gigantic video production company or big marketing agency or anything. Everything is pretty relatively like small to mid-level in how we accomplish things. Right. And so due to that, it has always kind of been all hands on deck at all times, which in the positive way means that I've learned so many different aspects of so many different creation and those
creations are an offshoot of you because you've infused it.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And so due to that though, there have definitely been those moments of burnout where it's like, why isn't this fun anymore? What am I not liking about this in any way? Whether I want it to be successful or not, like again, that experience, the culture, the process, why is this starting to feel different and it's not bringing me joy anymore? It's not bringing me any sort of fulfillment anymore. What do I need to do about that? Mm-hmm. And a lot of that, at least with my main like creative partner in a lot of this, there was a moment in time we kind of had to identify like, oh, maybe it shouldn't always be 50-50 all the time, because there's a percentage of stuff that he loves to do that I despise, paperwork being one of them, right? He loves to, write a contract and get all the production books together and kind of do that very like the structure of things, right? Mm-hmm. I can do that stuff, and I learned how to do that stuff because we needed to. But at some point I was like, I just want to come up with the cool ideas and help lay out the plan. And then, when it's time to execute it, cool, we'll be there. We can do it. Like,
you just literally laid it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about where creative people are amazing, where we get bogged down is the middle. And so now take this restaurant brand and take all the creativity and the fun of like putting the light fixtures together and coming up with the original artwork and staining the bar and coming up with the menu and all those cool things. But now operationally, day to day, you have to be consistent. You have to open the doors on time. All these the creative part is done. Mm-hmm. And now it's operations. And so for you said that your partner has some of those skill sets and really loves and is great at, right? But you're probably on to like visioning the next project.
100%.
Yeah. So for me, like as an entrepreneur and for this period of time when I was in the restaurant space, trying to build Sweet Carrot in that way, I get pulled into let's open another one because there's this brand new creative process all over again, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And we might have had a really good thing going at the original restaurant, but 1 to 2 is not easy. And then 2 to 3, there's a lot more stuff in the middle. And this is absolutely not where I wanted to be. And I hadn't taken the time to build that team. So like for you, you said you're small and scrappy. We started out small and scrappy, and that was fun. And we got bigger, and there was a lot more at stake. Mm-hmm. And I didn't take the time to build the structure and the people for the middle.
Did it, like, so during that time frame, did it take you a while to kind of like notice these things, to kind of be able to like take that step back for a second when the moment hit, to then say, wait a second, why does this feel so different? I haven't been liking this for 6 months or 3 years, or like, did it take a long time, or did you kind of sit in it for a while where you're like, you know what, this feels different, but I guess this is what it takes because I want the third location, you know? Like,
I think it was both. I think that it was so fun ideating what would come next. And also I had this belief in like, you know, my destiny was world domination. Mm-hmm. I mean, like that, my friends would joke and everybody at work would joke, oh, Angela's off to, you know, have world domination today.
I love that.
It's great. It fuels you and it keeps you going. But at the same time, like, what is behind it? So it was both. Like, I was still feeling creative and looking forward to what was next. But the reality of the situation. So, like, initial location, killing it. Second location, great. Third location, just was a bad location. We picked a bad real estate location. It was never good. And then the second location was on Polaris Parkway, and they started tearing up Polaris Parkway at our location. Mm. So now I have 2 underperforming stores, and all of a sudden cash flow dries up. And you know what? I closed those 2 stores, and we went back and focused on the original location and thought, live to fight another day. Mm-hmm. Because, you know, again, Sweet Carrot was... I mean, there are people, okay, I'll give you an example. My mom lives in the Akron area. She was in the hospital about a year ago. She had like 9 days in the hospital. And this nurse came in, and I think I had on my, like, a Sweet Carrot t-shirt or something. And she was like, oh my gosh, Sweet Carrot, I love that place. It was so great. What was your favorite thing? I'm like, everything. I'm the owner. And she freaked out. She wanted selfies. She wanted to tell all of her friends. Like, she loves Sweet Carrot. She lived in Cleveland. Okay. It just has this, I don't know what it is about the brand, but it's still, you run across people, you know, that talk about Sweet Carrot and they almost cry. And it's like, there's a sense of comfort. And I think it's because it's comfort food. There was something that felt like we were inviting you into our home. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about those Wes Anderson movies where you're like immediately dialed in and there's something quirky and amazing and you kind of want to live there going on. And that's how it felt in the restaurant. But I don't know. What's next? I've been talking for a while.
Hey, this is what this is for. You can literally ramble as much as you want. Tell me all the stories. Like, not a big deal at all.
All right. Well, hold on. What's your favorite Wes Anderson movie?
Oh, so even though I'm a filmmaker, like, I definitely like Wes Anderson, but I'm not one of those, like, oh my God, Wes Anderson people. Right, and honestly, like, this is probably going to be a pretty cop-out answer because it's also the most recent one that I watched, but I really, really liked it, was Asteroid City.
Yeah, it was fun. It was so weird.
Yes. And
it was so weird.
And weird is, like, my realm.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's probably some recency bias for sure, but I would probably go with Asteroid City. Do you have a favorite that stands out?
I mean, I don't know. I just love Fantastic Mr. Fox. Yeah, and Moonlight Kingdom is amazing too, but Fantastic Mr. Fox. Okay, I'm going to ask you another question.
Absolutely.
And then we can go back and tease this part a little more.
Yes.
Okay. Have you seen Sunny on Apple TV?
I have not.
Okay.
You're bringing this up at a good time, though, because I just subscribed to Apple TV.
Okay.
So.
Rashida Jones is in it.
Okay.
But it's set in Japan.
Okay.
And it's a little dystopian, and there's like a home robot. And it's this whole futuristic dystopian thing, but also with this nod back to sort of Japanese history. It's completely funky.
Interesting.
I highly recommend it.
Okay. I mean, you say future dystopia, you got me in there.
It's so good.
In the midst of about to finish Severance. I don't know if you've watched Severance.
I'm not. I just watched the last 2 episodes.
Season 2. I'm not there yet.
I will not give it away.
Okay. Yeah.
So good.
I think I'm like halfway through season 2 right now. Mm-hmm. having just started watching it about a week and a half ago. So I'm just on that binge right now. Of just
it's amazing.
And it's one of those things where like you see everybody talking about it, and I didn't really look anything up. I was just like, oh, a weird office show. Like, whatever. I don't know if that's my thing. And then someone described it to me, like giving enough detail where they were like, well, this is what it actually is. And I was like, oh, that's really weird. That it, again, right up my alley. Like, yep, that's going to draw me in for sure. So yeah, I'm in the middle of a Severance addiction currently. So
it's a worthy addiction. And after, just
Sunny.
Give yourself a little Sunny kicker.
Perfect. Mm-hmm. I love that. That will genuinely be added to the list because again, just got Apple TV. So I'm like diving into all the shows that everybody talks about, of like Severance, Ted Lasso, like all those sort of things.
Don't even tell me that you haven't yet watched Ted Lasso.
Folks, that was the episode. I feel like Angela's about to walk out.
What can I throw? I need something to kick over.
There's a big
really
plant right there if you just want to throw the plant over.
I'm out of here.
I've watched one episode of Ted Lasso. Okay. I've started it. I have started it. But again, the severance addiction is just too much.
It's strong. The pull is strong.
I keep getting pulled to the severed level, So I'm just like, I keep getting pulled.
Am I with your innie right now or your outie? That's what I want to know.
We'll find that out at the end of this episode. Okay. Whether, the different. I'm just gonna like kind of shut down and then wake back up. Like, hey, was that good? I don't know. Did we do a podcast? I have no idea. So yeah, I'm definitely diving into the world of Apple TV right now. So that will absolutely be added to the list. Well, so like back into Sweet Carrot world, right? Okay. Like I do want to dive into, you noted a little bit, but like during that time where you're making the decision of, okay, we went to 3, all right, we need to go back to 1. Mm-hmm. As like a business owner, as a creative, a visionary, the person who gets really excited about like, oh my God, what's next? Like, and I'm asking this one for the show, but also like for me, because I'm like, well, how do you deal with this? Like, what was really going through your mind, or what were you processing during that time of kind of reverting back? What did it feel positive and productive of like, I know for sure this is such a right move because of look how much stress I was dealing with? Or was there some like defeat, or was there some like, oh my God, like I'm losing this thing? Like, I don't know. It's a little bit of a struggle to process this. Like, do you remember kind of how it felt at that time? Or
it's a lot. It's never one thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the first thing was I need to handle this within alignment of my values. So knowing, like really diving into the dollars and realizing like we can still try and fix some of this, but the better play and the right thing to do is actually get out when I have control and I can do this within my value system. Like making sure all of our employees are paid. We're not, locking the door and saying, oh, sorry, we're closed. Giving our managers like time to find another job. So the first emotion, the first thing that I felt weirdly was pride and control. I mean, deeply sad and probably really embarrassed and shamed, like that I'd done this and that it didn't work. But also pride in the way that I ended that, and control in doing it within our values. The other piece was, you kind of hit on it earlier. The first location was so special, and I not having like the break on my team, like having a break, having that person who would look at me and say too fast, or I know you really like this and why don't you sleep on it for a few nights? So the direction that I went with the other 2 locations, they felt really commercial.
Okay.
More commercial, and not at all what was it within my original vision. And I am also a collaborator by nature, and so the people that I worked with, I really wanted to collaborate with them, and I didn't challenge as much as I would now. And they did beautiful work and great work, and it was really fun, and they did everything they could to give me what they believed I wanted. And in hindsight, I really collaborated when I should have driven, when I should have said, I know the answer here, and I'm going to actually. So I was Midwest nice.
Yeah.
Right? With like a whole lot of money.
Right.
Not great.
Yeah.
So I feel like we got off the brand in those other 2 locations, and that we built them a little bit by consensus. And as an artistic person, as an artist in your work, now I'm going to turn a question back on you. Like, can you think of a time when what you wanted to create was watered down because of consensus or Midwest nice?
I would say a handful of years of, because the biggest thing that I've most actively done for the last decade is a lot of video production. So a lot of directing video campaigns, a lot of that sort of stuff. And I mean, I spent, the first few years, it's so exciting because, oh my gosh, like, am I going to be able to carve out a career for myself in this? Like, and then it's the battle of, okay, I have a day job. I don't want these day jobs anymore. I want the passion to fuel everything. So then it's getting over that first hurdle. Then when that happens, you're still in such a go mode where you're like, okay, we've jumped off the cliff. Now we got to learn how to, build the plane while we're actually, in midair. And so it's just kind of go mode where everything, because it all is new, it's new and exciting, right? So any client that popped up, it didn't matter what the budget was. Even if we knew we needed more money to pull off the thing, it was still so exciting of like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm creating for a living, right? And that's not making tons of money, but it's something. And so, I feel like those, after the initial excitement blinders began to wear off, I think for a while, I personally sort of just settled myself into a watered down tone where it was almost like, well, this is what I have to do so I make money so I can continue to be self-employed and all this sort of stuff. So I get, I don't like what this client wants for this thing, but what else am I supposed to do? And then some of that Midwest nice where it's like, well, how can I turn this into like word it so like they feel like we're collaborating, but I really think the better idea is this. And because and maybe this is a whole other talking point. I don't know if you'll agree or disagree, but like, I don't think the customer is always right in most cases, honestly. And at least in my world where I'm like, there's just been so many conversations where I'm like, wait, you want what? Like that? No, this is not making any sense at all. But battling that a lot where it's like, well, I mean, it's their thing. I guess I should, absolutely like just push the collaboration to the side and just kind of go be a button pusher for them, right?
That feels like an inflection point though. Okay, so there's your theory that the customer's not always right. And I'm going to yes and that and say sometimes as humans, whether it's customer or ourselves, we don't know what the other options are. Mm-hmm. And so if someone's sitting across the table from you, unwilling to have a critical conversation or ask questions and then listen and ask more questions, like we might leave so stuck on that thing we believe we needed because someone was over collaborating or too Midwest nice to actually push on us a little bit. So yeah, I think that is interesting.
Mm-hmm. And that's, again, like you use that term watered down and like that, a handful of years into a creative service provider's career, I literally was like a handful of years ago, I was like, I think I should be doing something else because it just wasn't fun anymore because everything was being so watered down. Now, ultimately what that was, well, you've lost kind of the point almost. You've lost that, it might not all suck to do, but you've kind of put the joy or personal fulfillment aspect so far to the side, so far on the back burner, because you kind of I effectively kind of tricked myself into, well, this is what I wanted. Now I got it. There's nothing wrong with it, right? Oh my God, I'm getting paid to create. There's nothing wrong with this. And it's like, well, no, there's, just like a video game, when you get to new levels, that's exciting. But there's also going to be new challenges you're going to have to overcome in that level that leads you to another level. So it's not a finite thing, right? Where it's not just like you made it, that's just it now. And
but you also get permission to ask yourself, is what I've achieved now what I love to do and I'm great at?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Because so much comes along with that, right? Like all the crap that goes on in the middle, all the operational things, doesn't matter what you do.
And relearning, okay, on this new level with these new challenges, I have to kind of reevaluate. Yes, I've acquired new skills and new understanding of how I navigate this stuff, but also I've probably acquired some new feelings and understandings of what I do and do not want.
Yeah.
And it's very, I feel like, difficult when you're doing so much of the thing. And I personally feel like I have this conversation with a lot of creative peers often where they just kind of feel stuck. And a lot of the times I think it's because we're not kind of, slowing down when we can to become a little bit more present in the moment and really try to evaluate what is making this feel off, right? Because for me, I like years ago when I was kind of going through this initial burnout phase, I was looking at just the types of projects we were doing. I was like, I don't want to do those types of projects anymore. And yes, there's some validity to that feeling. But more so it was because, well, they weren't bringing me joy anymore. It was just a means to an end. It was just a thing I was doing that at one point in time I was vastly excited about. But that changed. And it kind of took me really, really, one, speaking it out loud, having those conversations with my creative partners and team and all this sort of stuff. And just, getting it off your chest and ranting sometimes is an awful good way to identify what's going on. And so I kind of did that. And for me at that time, it was, oh, wait, I'm just not enjoying this anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't want to do any of it. It's this way, this act of trying to find that fulfillment no longer serves me. So I can leave it behind if I want to, or I can reshape that and also find fulfillment elsewhere. I can also look outside of this one box that maybe effectively I've drained dry, at this point. Well, what else can I do? And that's the visionary part of me where I'm like, I'm very, very focused on, honestly, less in a business sense, but more in a just enjoying life sense. I just love to do a lot of stuff. Like a lot of variety of things. And most of the time I'm like, I will say yes to that. Yes, I have an idea. I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to add this to the list. And while, yes, I want all those things to be successful, right? I don't want them to deplete me and drain me and take up so much time, energy, or money and not go anywhere. Of course, I want them to be good. But ultimately, having refocused and reshifted a lot of my energy onto, does this bring me some level of personal fulfillment? Does this bring me joy? Can I really, really enjoy the process, knowing there's going to be hurdles, knowing there's going to be challenges, knowing there's going to be, the graph is going to look like this, ups and downs, but knowing that the default setting we're often operating with is hard. Okay, what can I do to not make it harder for myself? How can I keep that figurative tank of mine not on E? How can I keep replenishing that in some way? So then every new fun idea I have, I can, one, logically look at it to make sure it makes sense for me to try or not. But then if I can look at it and say, well, yeah, let's give it a shot. Okay, cool. Let's enjoy this thing. Let's enjoy this new challenge. Let's enjoy this new creative endeavor. And I've also gotten really, really comfortable with saying no. And also, when I feel how something feels, being okay with saying, I thought I wanted that. Turns out I didn't. Okay, I'm going to go back over here now. And so that was a long ramble that I don't even know where I took us from. But for me, it was always, or it really came to that moment of, I had to slow down. I had to kind of like zoom out a little bit and really, really evaluate what was going on in my life at that time. What trades did I want to make? What did I want more of? And how could I just start doing that rather than waiting on that opportunity to present itself out of something that I didn't even really want anymore? Like if I was doing something I didn't want, the chances of that presenting me a cool opportunity that I did, while not zero, was a lot lesser of a chance.
So let's go with that for a second.
Yeah.
Because a second ago you talked about, in my words, a hard stop. Mm-hmm. Like you're on a journey and then you decide we don't want to do that anymore. That's really hard for people who have organizations.
Yeah.
It's really hard for businesses. Mm-hmm. We had, I think when the pandemic hit, we had over 200 employees between the catering business, our venues, and the 3 restaurants. We're down to the 1 restaurant. We had over 200 employees. So there's a momentum that you talked about. You get mm-hmm. swept up in it, whatever it is. You need to make $1, and also you have this reputation for making music videos. And we had the restaurant, and we had this catering company, and we were doing all these high-end events. And then we also had part of our business on the catering side was like corporate catering. It was just, we were saying yes to everything. COVID comes along. You probably couldn't do what you wanted to do. We couldn't do what we wanted to do. Hard stop. Mm-hmm. And now all of a sudden the world gives you this crazy gift, which is like it pushes the pause button, which never happens. It doesn't happen in business. You don't get a pause button. No business owner ever said, starting tomorrow, we're just not going to do anything for like 6 months until we decide what we want to do, what's our sweet spot, what we should be doing. Right? So silver lining alert.
Yep.
There's all the really horrible things. We don't need to talk about them today.
Yeah.
Sweep them to the side. But man, this like hard pause where our team, and probably the same things that you were going through, were able to sit and say, who do we want to be when this thing is over? What do we want to do with this restaurant brand? What do we want to do with the catering business? And I know you didn't call me here about that, but that's like our gravy. I mean, that's 28 years as of March 16th that I started that company. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, the hard pause part of it was amazing. Like you get to say, this is who I was, this is who I am, and then this is what our team has decided that we want to be moving forward. Mm-hmm. This is the vision we're going to work towards.
That exact time frame is what I'm referencing. Mm-hmm. That like when everything, shut down, you're forced to stop. Okay, this is scary, this is terrible, but all right, we've got this pause. When we were able to come out of that pause, and it's like, all right, you guys are like, you can go out, you can start doing stuff again. There we go. Like, luckily, we had a small influx of video productions pop up. But what that did, what that pause, that zoom out did was like we went from 0 to 100 kind of, right? And then when we were going back to 100, I was like, I don't like this anymore because I got to like the distance from mm-hmm. it, right? I had some time away from it. So then when I had a whole bunch of it again, I was like, this doesn't feel right. Because it wasn't just, oh, I've been going 100 miles an hour doing all this stuff for the last 6 years, 7 years, whatever. Cool, we're just going to keep going. I don't really know. It doesn't feel that good anymore. I don't really like it, but like, whatever, we'll figure it out. That pause that we're talking about eliminated that. You stop going 100 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. So then when you start going again, you're like really paying attention at that point. Wait, okay, now I have this thing back, and now it's even more glaringly obvious of what I don't like about it. And so it literally was, it took me probably about another year to really identify. So come 2021 is when I was like, I'm not doing this music video thing anymore. I don't want to do it, and here's what I need in its place. And here's the me that I need to shape out of this. Here's the new things I need to do for myself, not just my creative career, business endeavors, whatever it may be. Like, these are the things I need to do to recenter myself, to really focus on, again, what brings me joy, what brings me fulfillment, and ultimately what type of person and life do I want to have. And so like when you go back to, we've reset at one restaurant, right? What is that reset like, I guess, for you at that time? And we've been kind of touching on that a little bit, but like, is it just kind of like, as a business owner, when you went back, where you were like, okay, we got through the rough patch of having to close down 2 locations. We're back at 1. Was it a breath of fresh air where you really felt like you could refocus? Or did it ultimately, like, in some way, did it feel like the roller coaster was still actually kind of going down at that time, where you're like, yeah, we're back to 1, but I don't know if we might have further down the road?
The bottom was dropping out. I mean, for us, it was 2 things. There was the restaurant. We could not hire employees. Like, we lost a GM. I mean, a lot of people were making decisions at that time. So, I get it. Mm-hmm. But we didn't, I think in 4 months we got like 3 resumes. That was the world. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but that was the world in 2020, late 2020, 21. Mm-hmm. A lot of people in the hospitality business who were not hospitality hearted, right? So like I think of it as 2 kinds of people flock to hospitality. People like me. Did you ever wait tables or work in a restaurant?
I never did. Okay.
Now I have to drop kick you again. Ted Lasso, and
working in hospitality.
So embarrassing. I'm leaving.
This is not good.
But there are people that are just drawn to it.
Yeah.
And a lot of extroverted people and people that just like truly love service. Okay, so I was one of those. And then there are people who end up in hospitality because it's like a pass through. It's a place. It's a way that you can make some money and then move on to next. And then when you look at fast casual restaurants and things like that, that's even more retail based. And so you don't have a lot of those hospitality passionate people that are necessarily drawn to it.
Yeah.
Well, think about what happened after COVID. hospitality people were getting treated like crap. I mean, we were all taking our feelings out on the people who actually showed up to work.
Yep.
And so now you have people that are like, I don't need this. And the true hospitality people felt like they couldn't even deliver hospitality. And I'm speaking from my experiences, and I know there are a lot of people in the hospitality industry that maybe had a different experience, but it was so hard. Mm-hmm. So if you just someday go back and have conversations with anybody you know in the hospitality industry, it was you're fighting to save this thing, and you're fighting to have these customers come in the door, and then a lot of them are coming in with all the feelings, and they're taking it out on the 5 people who showed up for work when you needed 15, and it was just it was not a good time. So it was so hard for us to hire. I actually had to, the reason I closed the original Sweet Carrot, which is heartbreaking to this day, is we have this multi-million-dollar catering business over here with venues and 150 employees. And I was, instead of trying to save that, I was over baking bread at Sweet Carrot, trying to save the restaurant. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like we were down to 8 employees and we needed 30 on our roster. And I'm like standing in the corner making our homemade bread, and I'm watching people who, the passionate people, the people that love the brand and like loved the company, they're the ones that stuck it out. And they're exhausting themselves. I've got somebody trying to cover the counter and run back and work in the kitchen, and there's a pile of dishes, and it was not working, period. So at the end of the lunch rush, I just pulled everybody together and said, we're going to close early today. And then in my mind, I'm like, okay, let's just get to closing early, and then I'll figure out what the next step is. So between closing early and the next step, I'm also now jumping out and waiting tables, helping with tables. And this couple, it was a dad and his daughter, came in, and they were traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast. He was taking her to graduate school. And we had been on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives, which was just one of the most surreal, super fun things. That was in 2017. So this couple was like, oh my gosh, you were on Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. That's the whole reason we came here. We drove 50 miles or something out of our way. And just to eat here, we thought it'd be so cool. That was the last table I waited on.
Wow.
And I'm waiting on them, and I'm thinking, that's amazing. We cannot deliver that experience anymore. So my next thing after we close at 2:00 is I'm going to tell the team we're taking a 30-day pause to regroup. But I knew we were not going to reopen. Mm-hmm. So over that 30 days, we let people know we're not going to reopen. Those of you who want to go find other jobs, go find other jobs. Those of you who love the company and still love the brand, there'll be a home for you in the bigger company. And we're going to live to fight another day, but it's not going to look like this. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to pause again because I just feel like I said a lot of words.
So before we even keep kind of going down the Sweet Carrot route, obviously you've mentioned the catering business. Mm-hmm. And you said, that's really the gravy. That's kind of the bread and butter. That's I do want to take us back and let's dive into that for a second. I know we keep kind of, no pun intended, dangling the carrot on what's next for Sweet Carrot. But
dun, dun, dun.
We'll get to that. You got to keep listening, folks. But walk me through. I'm going to give you kind of a 2-part question, and I think both of them are going to be pretty broad. But I know you'll be able to take us there in whatever shape the story takes.
Okay.
But one, let's talk about the catering business, how that even gets started, what that looks like, and the B portion of that is, where does this interest or even entry into the hospitality business or world even begin for you? I don't know if those two things
question
coincide.
Has to go first.
Yeah. Okay. So they don't really.
Yeah,
so it's
they do.
That first. Yeah.
They do. So where did hospitality come from? Okay. I'm going to try to give you, this is what I call the non-brown liquor drink story. Okay. Because if I tell you the whole thing, it requires brown liquor and more time. So I grew up in the Akron area.
Okay.
I grew up in Akron. And my family, amazing human beings, did not come from a background of education. So of all of my grandparents, I don't think any of them graduated from high school.
Okay.
So it was, I went to high school, and it was expected that I would get a job and live in my mom's neighborhood and then get married and have kids and whatever. So I left home at 17, had a whole lot of circuitous route, but at 20, I ended up in Germany, in southern Bavaria. I went there with a one-way ticket and $164. I took a train from Berlin down to southern Bavaria and ended up working at a hotel that was actually owned by the American military. So I could work there legally. And that's a whole other story. But what was the beautiful part was their whole outlook on hospitality and what it means was so different. In the States, here, I think we think of it, as I mentioned earlier, like a pass-through job. So many of us waited tables. Some of us did. You didn't.
Wait, what? What's
that's
happening
okay.
here? Hold on.
But a lot of us did, and that's like our first job. I mean, my first job was McDonald's. Fired, by the way. Second job, Ponderosa. Not fired, but probably would have been if I hadn't quit. This is why I'm an entrepreneur.
Yes.
But like hospitality is something you do when you're young or when you're older. It's a pass-through until something else for a lot of people, not everyone. And I don't think that as Americans we respect what goes into hospitality. Everybody wants it. Everybody uses it. Everybody expects great service. But what it takes is not respected, I think. Most of the time. Yeah. I'm not going to say all the time by all people. In Germany, they have their education system diverges at high school, and you either go on a college track or a trades track. And one of the trades is the hospitality industry. So here I am at just turned 20, 19. I was 19 when I went. And I'm working beside all these German kids who were still in school, and they were learning the dish tank and how to cook and work with a chef. And then they had to wait tables and bartend. They had to do all of it. And I was kind of blown away by that experience. And they called the head waiter Herr Ober, which means Mr. Boss. They treated the head server with the same almost more respect in some ways than we treat people who are managers in this country. And that really stuck with me. And I thought, when you fast forward to when I started my company, I thought I want to have a hospitality business where we are a home and we treat people who truly love and want to be in the hospitality industry. We've created a place where they are valued and respected for what they bring to the table, what it means to truly, we call it wholehearted hospitality. So that's part 2.
Yes.
The question.
I'm going to pause us before we continue on that track, because I'm very fascinated to know your thoughts of kind of the modern day perception of the hospitality industry, because you see it all over the place online, realistically. And you said, hey, of course it's not, we can't say it's everybody treats people this way, but you see it everywhere where people, it's the classic, just put the fries in the bag, or just shut up and give me the thing, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah. I know I'm asking you let's solve the world's problems here, but where do you think that comes from? Does it come from the very Americanized, everything's as fast as possible and just go and we don't have to care, just consume every day, that no one's effectively slowing down and saying, wait, let's respect this person, let's treat them with respect. And even on the flip side of what makes the hospitality business or the industry in a place like America become that stepping stone where, when somebody's a 35-year-old manager at a restaurant, people look at them that's all
right,
you're not successful, that's it, you're still stuck there.
What are you going to do? What job do you want next?
Right,
it's this assumption. Yeah.
And so, I know this is a very opinion-based question, but I would just love to know your thoughts on why is that? Is it just the American thing that we're just yep, whatever, who cares? I
think it's two-sided. So let's talk about just a post-pandemic world, because the pre-pandemic world, I think, all right, let's dial back even a little further. Columbus, as a food city, is relatively recent, right? Yeah. So when I moved to Columbus, I actually came here to go to Ohio State when I was 21, because when I came back from Germany, I was older. And I was I'm going to go to college now, I think. The Columbus of then versus the Columbus of now are completely different, right? We were kind of, if you think about comedy skits of Columbus, Ohio, it was, how many Chili's restaurants we had, right? Or TGI Fridays, and there were early pioneers. I mean, one of my really good friends is Kent Rigsby, and he lives next door to me, and that name might not mean anything to you, but he had a restaurant in the Short North back when the Short North was still being, still had gangs, and it was, not a great place to go. And he had this amazing restaurant called Rigsby's. And people would come from all over the suburbs to go to Rigsby's because in their part of Columbus, their choices were, Outback Steakhouse and Chili's and, like every not awesome restaurant you can think of. So we have a pretty short history of actually having a food culture here. So with the food culture comes the service culture.
Yeah.
Right? And what does it mean? Like if you go back to those restaurants, there's pretty friendly people that walk over to the table and, hi, I'm Angela. I'm here to take your order, please. And some of us want to punch them in the face, and some of us are like, think that's really great. But like true outstanding service, hospitality service has had to evolve as the restaurant scene has evolved. And it was really evolving nicely. And now you have this cleave, right, in history where the pandemic happened and then everything on the other side. So I kind of see two parts. I see both sides from my hospitality through a hospitality lens, and also somebody who expects really great customer service, because I don't get a choice every day. I don't get a choice to decide if we're going to be great at our job or not. That is not our culture. It's not how we do what we do, whether it was for a $12 entree at Sweet Carrot or a $250 a plate experience with Together and Company. That is not something we choose. And so I go through life thinking that if I'm going to take $1 from you, you need to get value for it. And it's just, I think it was so hard after the pandemic for, all those reasons we talked about, for people to even survive in hospitality. And then they have to build back their hospitality staff with people who truly care. I think that something's been lost on the hospitality side at the same time that it was lost. I think that the people in hospitality have lost trust in the client. And the client has lost trust that hospitality is going to deliver. And that's something that I really believe we have to work on to bring it back. I'll give you an experience without naming names.
Yeah.
There's a restaurant group in Columbus, and I think that they do some of the most amazing food, just great food, creative, and they're in beautifully designed spaces. And when I walk in, I feel like they're doing me a favor. And I don't feel like I'm there to be celebrated and that they are going to experience, that they really want that $1, $5, or these days $200 from me, that they'll just get it from somebody else. And that kills me. It kills me.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So do you feel like it's like, and I feel like we could copy and paste literally anything in the world into this part of the conversation, but like, do you think so much of it just comes from like the fast pace, like even business growth, where a lot of people have traded the, and again, not everybody, but a lot of people have traded that like hospitality, the experience, the culture that we were talking about earlier. They've traded it for what's the dollar? What's the next thing? We just need to churn through this stuff as quickly as possible. I don't care if someone quits because they were sad, because I'm going to replace them and we just need to meet our quota for this month. Like, I know that's like, the classic, American business complaint 101 that's been around forever. And I'm sure it's just a thing of when people are outside of the industry, they're not going to use the terminology. But like, I would venture to guess that probably a lot of people don't even look at a lot of this stuff in the terms of, oh, that's the hospitality industry. They're just like, oh, it's food. It's fast food. It's this. Just serve me the thing. So it's like even the connection to what this really at its root can be or is supposed to be or is built off of has maybe been just like pushed aside so much for, I'm going to go in, hopefully the waiter's nice to me and the food better not suck, or I'm going to jump on Yelp and complain. Like, you know, like.
There has to be a business case behind all of this. So as a restaurateur, whether you're in fast casual or fine dining or something in between, you have a right to make a profit. And it's really freaking hard to make a profit in the food business, especially if you're newer, right? There are established places in Columbus that are doing really well and they'll continue to do well, and they're really protective of their brand. But it is not an easy industry. Yeah. And it gets harder every day. Because I can say to a client, I know that you booked a wedding with us at Together and Company 6 months ago, and I told you it'd be this price, but eggs, which is a real thing, are now, 10 times more expensive, or that cut of meat that you selected is 10 times more expensive. Like, I don't get to do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's other strategies that you can employ, and we've employed them all, but like for a restaurant, it's really hard. Mm-hmm. And that's just managing the food and buying the food and making I don't know about you, but like if you think about pre-COVID versus now, it is so expensive to go out to eat.
Yeah.
And I mean, like inflation it's not like it's a little more. It's like it used to be $50 to go out and have an entree and an app and a drink, and now it's $100 a person. And when you go out 2 people, it's not, I mean, the sticker shock of like $250 for dinner still hasn't worn off for me.
Yeah.
Right? So it is real. It is a real issue. It is really hard. And so then you throw on that every person that approaches a table has a chance to make or break the experience, even after you got your pricing right. So they all have a right. Every restaurant and every hospitality business has a right to make their business case. They're like, in a lot of cases, leaving their own blood, sweat, and tears on the floor every day. So bravo to them. I think there is a happy medium where we still provide really great hospitality to people, and I will keep using that word very intentionally, and that we are still honoring the customer side and the fact that customers are choosing to come to you even though it's double what it might have been 5 or 6 years ago.
Yep.
On the other side, man, just don't be an asshole.
Right.
Don't be an asshole. I'm not going out to eat with any friends or any human beings who treat people in the service industry and they're assholes.
I've luckily never experienced that directly, and I don't know what I would do in that moment where I would just be like, all right, I don't think we're doing this.
I think you have to call them on it. Like, that seems not okay.
You're a very weird person. Do you know you're being weird right now and kind of shitty? Like, what the hell's good? Yeah. So luckily I've never had that. Have you ever had that experience, like in person, where you've been with somebody and you're like, whoa, in front of me of all people? Like,
I have had that experience. It usually, sadly, comes from family, but not my friends.
Classic. Yes. Yeah. So let's dive back into the creation of Together & Co. So last time we left off, we're in Germany. Yeah. We're realizing that they take hospitality seriously. They care about it, the way it's presented, accepted, all that sort of stuff. So I guess, like, is there more to that Germany story that is like, this is when this really shaped my viewpoint? Or was it just like, I was there for X amount of time, and I know you said you then came back to the States and decided to go to college. Was that time frame any deciding factor of like what you were coming back to college for? Was it like shaped by the experience there, and then it was like this hospitality thing, like, okay, this is the thing. How do I find my way into the business of this?
Sort of, yes. And I came back completely shaped by that experience in terms of just being like really impressed with how they treated people in the industry, and I loved that. And I continued to put myself through school and survive in hospitality jobs. But I went to college to go to college. I went to like just learn how to learn. I didn't go to have a specific major. I thought in the back of my head, I'll go to law school or something. And then I graduated, and for a lot of reasons, I didn't do that, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I majored in history and political science, and like many liberal arts majors, found myself back in hospitality because that's what you do. So I worked at some cool places in Columbus, and I had just a terrible non-hospitality day job that we will give it no time today because it's terrible. Yeah. But I was bartending at night and with a friend, and we would just daydream about what we should do when we grew up, in air quotes. And I don't know what I wanted to do with my life, honestly. And I don't think she did either. And we just decided catering seems so easy. It's just like throwing a party and people pay you. And so we literally decided to start a catering business. And the guy who owned the bar that we bartended at had another bar in the brewery district, and he said, we could do our catering business out of this bar, and as long as we did the happy hour food at night.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So we started at this place called Tommy Keegan's in the brewery district a long time ago. And that is how we started in the catering business. And then a couple of years in, her name was Jill. She moved to California with her now husband, and I stuck with it.
And we've been making mention of it this entire conversation. It still exists.
It still exists.
The thing
So,
today.
Yeah, for sure. Our home office is on High Street. I bought an old historic building. For many years, people may or may not have remembered Hoster's. It was called Hoster's. It was one of the original kind of brew pub in Columbus back before microbrew was a thing. And it was a really popular bar back when the brewery district was a thing, which you're looking at me with this blank look on your face. And I'm like, that's so cute.
These are good history.
So cute. So anyway, we started this business out of this bar. And then, I stuck with it.
And this is going to be such a silly generic question, but like, how does one start a catering business? Like what, especially from scratch, where it's literally going from daydream to now we got to get practical with it. How do we begin? Like, how do
I can tell you how we started. It was mental. We decided we'd do the lunch business out of this bar because it wasn't open during the day. And so all these people would come in, and we made up our own menu, and we would wait tables, run back, make the food, make the drinks, deliver them.
Just you two?
And then we got an employee. So my friend Jen, we talked her into doing it. And then we got another employee. And then we started telling people, we're really caterers. We're, really with a lot of confidence. We're really caterers. Yeah. And then one of the women that would come in regularly said, well, I'm not making this up. She's like, well, my mom is dying. So when she's dead, I'm going to need somebody to cater the thing at my house. And we're like, okay. Creepy
awesome
or weird gig. Or really direct, or maybe you're just at peace with it. But so she passed, and that was our first catering job.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then we could officially say we were caterers.
Yeah, and you walked around, you're like, hey, you got a funeral coming up? We'll cater
We'll do it.
This is our specialty.
Yeah. And I don't even remember how it grew from there. It's not like it was the time of, I'm dating myself a little bit here, but it wasn't like I don't think social media was really ubiquitous at the time or a thing.
Posting anything every day.
I had a
flip
phone.
Yeah.
So
Well, that was kind of going to be my next question. Is, I guess to the best of a recollection, like, do you remember when maybe generally that moment was of like when you were like, oh, this is a thing.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't just like kind of working here and there. It's like, oh yeah, no, this is a business, and look at all these clients we have, and look at all the stuff we're doing. Like, do you remember that time?
I do. There were a couple of those points in my life. One was when my partner was still with me, but we had actually gotten a space in the Worthington area. Okay. It was just empty. We knew some people who knew some people and said, will you take this over, and we'll just sublet it to you. And we had a little business there. People would come in for lunch, and then we did catering, and we started having all these pharmaceutical reps that would use us. And I think when I thought this is a real business is I was delivering to like Ohio State University all the time. In our cars, by the way, like in the back of our trunk.
Yeah.
But it was, and we were working, 14 hours a day because we were, again, still making the food. And then we'd like write an order on a little piece of paper. And I wish I remember more about how we ramped up. Because I really don't. I think it was just a blur.
Right.
Because we weren't getting a lot of sleep. Mm-hmm. But then Jill left. And then here I am thinking I got to keep doing this. And not because it was like this big passion of mine, but I think I felt stuck at that point. And I'm like, I got to do this. I don't have anything else to do. And she left, and now I have this lease. Mm-hmm. I think when it really felt like this is going to be something that someday I can sell, or, like actually this will be my future. Like I can financially point to this and say like this was life-changing was, oh my gosh. I think right when we bought the building on South High Street, and it wasn't that long ago. It was 2013. I guess that was a long time ago. But
to me, I'm like, it's like 3 years ago, right?
2013. Like, but it was because I bought this building. It was like $850,000, and we put all this money into it. And at the time, it was terrifying to me. Like, I can't buy a building that expensive. But we did a business plan, and on paper, it made sense. And we did the thing. And I'm like, I think I remember being there like late at night in this really old building. It was an original trolley barn from like 1870. And I'm sitting in this creaking old, really freaking cool, like exposed brick, you know, all the beams building. And I'm thinking like, I did this, I bought this, I own this. I think I'm a grown up. I'm a grown up now. Like we have 100 and some people like that are working for us. I think I'm an adult.
That is amazing.
I mean, I was probably in my, what was that? I was in my 40s, so I hope I'm an adult.
Yeah, you're like, let's see. I mean, like, I'm wondering when I'm actually going to grow up too, so we'll figure it out. Yeah. Now, business always comes with its ups and downs. We've noted that a few times through this conversation.
How's today, honey?
Today. Well, today, perfect story. But, you know, during, you know, we're talking about that ramp up period. We're talking about that clarity period where you're like, oh my God, I think I'm a grown up business owner. Like, this is wild. Was there any standout moments during that time frame where you were like, I like doing this, but I do not think this is going to work anymore? Like, were there any of those down moments where it was like, I have no idea how we're pulling through this? Like, we're gonna, but like in that moment you were like, I have no idea anymore.
Oh, like so many times.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to keep pulling it back to the pandemic either, because there's some really gruesome ones that happened then. I mean, I felt like I wanted to literally climb under a table. But I mean, there's so many times when I thought we can't do this. One really good example. So this probably happened, I don't know, 8-ish, 9-ish years ago. We had an order for like 750 box lunches. And you know, I'm going about my business. I'm not in the operations world anymore, right? I was more on the sales side and managing the company. And I remember leaving at the end of the day before this delivery, and I popped into the cooler, and there's 750 box lunches. And I'm like panicking. Why are these box lunches already done? This isn't until tomorrow. And I unwrapped it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's, you know, the bread is already starting to get hard, and the lettuce is funky. And like food that sits in a cooler for over 24 hours is not awesome. And I realized like they made all these lunches and they're going to be gross tomorrow. And I think I called our operations manager and said, I will sell you this company for $5. And then I burst into tears because I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to give people something that sucks.
Because that goes back to
like,
the experience.
How did we get
right?
here? Yeah. So I'll fast forward. It was not a popular decision, but I'm like, we're not sending this food to these people. This is not okay. We had one of our vendors bring us like a bunch of food and bread in the back of his thing. He stayed, and at like 3 a.m, the entire team got together and busted out 750 more box lunches.
Wild. Which
cost us money, but we did the right thing. But that was one of those moments when I was like, okay, this is a real deal. Mm-hmm. Like, you can do what's easy or you can do what's right. And that is one of those moments that defines who you are as an organization.
Yep. Now, in all of those moments, again, the ups and downs, you've touched on this throughout the conversation so far, but what did the balance really become, or what did it feel like or look like when you're then the owner of not just, all right, we got the catering company, but also we've got this restaurant and it's called Sweet Carrot. Here we go. Like, you know, we've well established we both love vision and ideas and doing the fun thing, but like, what does that begin to feel like for you? Like, did it become overwhelming, or was it just exciting of like, take me to that period of time when one thing now becomes two and we're expanding?
Oh, it was crazy. I told you, like, one of the reasons, if I could go back in time and change something, it would be that I built a team. Mm-hmm. Because it wasn't that I was doing it alone. There were people helping, but at the end of the day, they did not have skin in the game. Mm-hmm. Right? And so, imagine like I was 10 pounds lighter. I looked like a zombie human because I was working. I remember working 18 hours. I'd go home. I'd take the briefest nap. I'd take a shower and I'd go back to Sweet Carrot.
Yeah.
Because I was carrying it on my back. And I had so many cool, awesome people there, but I was carrying it on my back. And then the business was just suffering. Mm-hmm. I mean, those people were trying to carry it on their back, but it just wasn't awesome.
Right.
It's not possible. Like, there's so many amazing ideas out there and so many things entrepreneurs want to bring to life, and it's just you can't do it without a team. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I think in the creative space, you probably have more ability to do that. But in something like that, that's heavily operational, you can't do it. And you cannot work harder. I just had this conversation with a young entrepreneur recently. She's kind of in our space tangentially. And I asked her, what does working hard mean to you? And she gave me a lot of answers. And she said, finally, what do you think it means? And I said, when you start working your brain harder than your body, that's working hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because nobody wants to do that. Like, you can lift a bunch of stuff and try to get through your work quicker, but you can't build more hours into the day. And so there's a shift when you have to start to, like, do hard things with your mind that you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. That's working hard.
On that note, I'm sure that it sounds like this is something that you probably often have conversations about. But, like, when you are talking to that young entrepreneur, or if I were sitting here and I was saying, Angela, I want to open up a restaurant. I want to get in the hospitality business. I love it so much. Here's what I want to do. What's your collection of go-to advice that you often share with somebody who's wanting to get in this world or is and trying to build?
So I spend a lot of my time these days on leadership development. I actually work outside of our business, and consulting is not my favorite word, but I do a lot of work with other teams. And it's the same. It doesn't matter if it's hospitality or ant farming. I don't really care. The first thing is you need to dig into a few things. What is your vision? Why are you truly doing this? And the example that I gave to that young entrepreneur the other day was, imagine that your entrepreneurial journey is going on a trip, and let's just say it's the Grand Canyon. You have to know where you're going, why you're going, how you're going to get there, and you have to map it out. And then a year from now, you have to map it out again. Okay, now with this set of circumstances, where are we going? Are we still going to the same place? And how are we going to get there? And you have to answer that question for yourself first. What is your Grand Canyon? Because if you think it's, I'm going to open this restaurant or do this business, that's not the answer. The answer is, what is the vision? And asked another way, 1 year from now, what will you be celebrating? So then that kind of pulls back another layer, so you can ask yourself the next set of questions. What is it going to look like? How are we going to do it? So you asked earlier about why might hospitality be a little different these days? Well, one of your answers can be, I just want to make a lot of money. Well, first of all, that's the wrong industry. But if whatever business it is, if it's about making money, stop and don't do the thing. But how do you want to make money? We all actually deserve to make money, and we don't like to talk about that. How do you want to make it? That's the questions you answer next. Like, for me, I want to make it with people who feel like they have a home in hospitality and that they feel respected for the work they do, and that there's something to develop on to be the very best they can be. That's a different answer than, I just want to open a restaurant or I want to have a hospitality business. It's a layer of questions. And those questions then have to jive with who you are. So you talked a lot about not feeling good doing the work anymore. Over our lives, our value systems can change. Who we are doesn't change, but our values can change, right? There's a whole lot of values out there. There's none, it's not they're right or wrong. It's do they jive with the thing in this moment? Is there alignment? So you have to understand that going into it, because if you're going to build this thing, you need to build it in alignment with who you are. Those are the questions I'd say. Spend the hard work thinking about that, getting in alignment, being clear of why you're doing it. Then the second thing is build a business plan.
Yeah. I love that so much. I now feel like I want to go start a new business right after this conversation.
Would you like to hire me as your consultant?
Yes, absolutely. We're in business. Well, I guess before, are there any gaps in the story that you feel like we haven't covered before we get to the what's next question that we've been kind of dangling throughout this conversation? Like, was there anything major with like, hey, we didn't even, with Together and Co, there's this whole part of this that we didn't do. Like, I know the food truck was a part of it. Like, I don't know, like we haven't really dove into that very much. Like, and I don't want to miss any chapters basically of the story of like, hey, if we walked out of here, we didn't talk about this part, like we're missing a big chunk. Like, anything that we haven't covered, anything like that?
I think that just mentioning Together and Company. So when I started the business as two caterers, in 2019, so having been in business for let's just call it a very long time at that point, we realized like people would come up to our staff and say, "Are you one of the 2 caterers?" And they meant it, like, and people would laugh about it on our team, but we realized we really needed to rebrand to be consistent with who we were as a company that had been in business for over 2 decades, but is constantly innovating, and still feels really young and fresh, even though we've been around for a long time. So we did a lot of brand work, and we came up with Together & Co. And we rebranded, and it was interesting because we saw some of our business trail off a little bit during that rebrand. That's a tough thing to do, is to stop that train, right? But who we are now, it's just so much more consistent with how I feel through the lenses that I talked about, values and vision. Like, we are together. And our whole entire culture is about collaboration and being a place where you feel valued. But also that, like, one of our core values is leave it better. Every single person on our team has an opportunity to leave the company, themselves, and other people better. And so this just feels like so much more consistent with who we are. Instead of 2 caterers, which is small and about the founders, Together & Company is like, that's our heart. So that was one big thing. Yeah. You could do a whole episode on rebranding.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Any founder who goes through that, there's a lot of feels that, when you leave that behind and you move to something new.
Let's touch on that real quick. Like, what did that feel like for you, or what was that challenge like for you? Of like, I know this is what we need. We need to kind of freshen, fresh coat of paint, that sort of thing. But like, was it a challenge? Was it just, let's do it, this is exciting? Walk me through the rebrand.
Yeah. So I love change. I mean, again, entrepreneurial brain, like, give me challenges like that. I'm good. I was ready for it. I was really surprised by how emotional and sentimental our team was. I mean, I have people who've worked for me for 17 years, 15 years, 9 years, 10 years. I mean, like, we have a really tight group, and we don't have a lot of turnover. So I have service staff that have been with me for 18 years, which is crazy.
That's awesome.
They were so emotionally attached. That was like their identity. Team TC. So it was a change management piece, and that I had never really been through anything like that, where you really have to understand, how do you change internally before you even adopt externally. That was a really cool experience. Getting everybody on board, the why, like really being vulnerable with them and explaining the why and bringing them along on that journey. And then trying to do it externally. And again, it was the same thing. Just be vulnerable and tell your story. That's always been easy for me, to kind of lead with vulnerability. I like people to know my story or the story. And I'm pretty much an open book. And I think because of that, it made the transition easier. There was no like bravado about it. It was like, here you go. Let's talk about the story. Let's talk about the good and the bad. And
Yep. It wasn't just hey, everybody, make sure you read the email. We're transitioning to a new name, back to work. Because I always think there's so much value in that vulnerability when you can share the purpose into why something's happening with somebody else. And it's not that they have to feel it the same, but at least understand it and be able to connect in their own way to that why, to that purpose.
Yeah.
And I feel like I often feel like whether it's a creative idea or a business venture or whatever, I sometimes feel like I over-index or over-explain the why and the purpose so much, where in times past, I feel like sometimes people are like, yeah, dude, I'm down. You don't have to tell me, you don't have to bare your heart as to why you want to do this thing.
I think there's like oversharing.
Yeah.
And then there's giving people the why.
Right.
And, you asked me what some of my aha moments were when I thought this is a business. My favorite and best aha moment was when I realized I still do this because I want to be a servant leader. I want to be a great leader for people, not for myself. I don't care that much about the business anymore. And I love what I do, but I'm not really in the hospitality business anymore on the Together & Company side. I'm there. I am a strategist for the company, but I'm a leadership development person. I mean, just a year ago, one of those 15-year veterans of the company was made president of Together & Company. So she is the operational boss, period, hands down. Like, the back door is closed. There's no end running her to come to me, right? And that's the aha. Like, I love seeing potential in people who can be leaders and helping them develop that. Like, nothing makes me happier. And that's why I still love going to work every day, because our company's growing. And I know you're going to segue me to Sweet Carrot here in a second so we can finish out. But like, that's what's so exciting is I love to create. And I'm still in a creative space in my life, but it's different. I felt driven and burned up to like bring these things to life. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like, you know, if you could carve open the inside of your brain, it's like one of those Indian colorful chalk ceremonies.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But that isn't the driver anymore. The driver is that those things still exist, and I still am a highly creative person, but I really love enabling and empowering and developing others to actually make it better than I ever could. And so when we go back to why did this nascent Sweet Carrot not take off, is I was trying to like power through with everything in my own brain creatively. And I was not yet at a place in my career where I was empowering others while still being true to my own creative vision.
Before we hop on the segues, you have spawned another question. You just keep saying all this amazing stuff that I'm like, oh, this makes me think of this and that. And maybe the answer is super simple. And it's like, nope, don't know what you're talking about. And then we can move on. But like, in that idea of loving, helping, and empowering other people, I 100% subscribe to that idea. I'm like, yes, if anything, like, of course, I want to be successful with my endeavors and I want to see my ideas flourish, but it's because I love to just like, oh my God, can I lift this up? Can I help this? Like, if I ever have any of that power, I want to be able to do all the things with all the people. Now, in the past, though, I have been very guilty of almost projecting my wants and needs into someone else just because they said they were down to be along for the ride. And what I mean by that is almost taking the positive belief and hope for empowerment into somebody and turning it into a negative thing because you almost want the thing for them more than they might even want it.
Oh my gosh, I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Is that something that you have dealt with? And then the secondary, how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, so many times.
Okay, yeah.
So now I'm in a place where I don't deal with it. I'm coaching leaders on how to deal with it.
Yeah.
And it's this moment of, we have our vision as an organization. And the way that I describe it to one leader in particular, let's talk about Carly, who's the president of our company now. Talk about Carly. She knows how to run that company. It's better than I do at this point operationally. And she needs a team. And so the way I describe it to her is you need people that are glued to your side. Like if you think about ancient battle, you glued yourself to each other and you held up shields. And if there was a break, if somebody braked, then you're going to die. So you have to have people glued to your side. And if they're not, you're basically like exposing yourself, or you're pulling somebody up the hill, or you're pulling them into battle and they don't want to be there. And there's lots of reasons why we do this as leaders. We sometimes think if I get rid of that person or I don't pull them along with me, then I'll have nothing. Or I need to pull them along, they just don't know. Or they're not there yet. Right? So we want to invest in them and think the best of them. There's all these reasons, but ultimately, if you do this for too long, you're not doing anything right by the person you're dragging along, and you're leaving yourself exposed. They're not sharing the pain. And so we talk about that a lot. As leaders, if the people around you are not feeling your pain, you are not leading. Yeah. Which sounds crazy because as leaders, we think we want to protect people from pain. That's not really developing them. And I'll give you one more point because you've given me a soapbox and I'm just going to stand on it right now.
Absolutely.
I love Harvard Business Review. I don't know if you subscribe to it, but it's amazing. So there was this super impactful article that I read once, and it was about the role of feedback and women. And I read this article, and it, in essence, boiled down to men and women, it doesn't matter, but if they're managers of women, they tend not to give them hard and specific feedback. And it's been discovered, they don't want to hurt a woman's feelings, or they just unconscious bias. They can give a man really specific feedback, but they might not give the woman specific feedback. And over time, that translates into women not rising in their professions at the same rate as men. And we know all the statistics around all of this, right? So I made it a point earlier in my career that I'm going to give feedback. And I'm going to think of it as a gift to receive it and to give it. And most importantly, I'm going to teach the leaders that I'm developing why that is so important. And that feedback is the difference between, do you get those people who you know have the capacity to drink the water? Can you get them there the right way? Or when do you cut bait and say, I can't invest anymore in you because I've been direct, I've given you the feedback, and now it's on you, and I need somebody glued to my side. And in small business, there are no room for gaps. There's no room for gaps.
How do you coach somebody best on giving feedback if they are uncomfortable with confrontation, quote unquote?
Giving feedback if they're uncomfortable with confrontation. Okay, so I'm going to make this up, but I think 97.3% of all people are uncomfortable giving feedback at some point in their lives, right? Right. Critical conversations. A lot of times we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, right? But so Brene Brown, the goddess of all things, says clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So start with that. So if you're telling someone on your team, you've got to be more direct. You have to hold people accountable. You have to have hard conversations. Start with clear. Because if I dance around what it is you really need to hear, I'm not being kind to you. I'm not being kind to the organization. I'm not being kind to myself. In this moment, I'm actually protecting myself from having to give you something that's useful. And you're doing nothing good for anyone. But I spend a lot of developmental time just on that one thing. If there was one leadership muscle that we could build, that's it. It is having critical conversations. Yeah. And understanding like you are harming people by dancing around the truth. And in some cases, that harm can translate with ripple effects to all of their income, what they achieve in life. Just like grow some and say the thing. Yep.
That a few years ago, I heard some quote somewhere. I don't know where it was. But there's a difference between being nice and being kind. And that like being nice is, it's fine. Being kind is actually saying the harder thing that might actually not feel nice to say, but it's kind because it's going to ideally set them up more positively in the future. Right. Just like you just said of what could this domino effect into if you don't teach them that they're doing the thing wrong or that's not going to work or whatever it is. And then that means they're going to carry that with them, not knowing, being unclear on what maybe they should be doing or need to do less of or whatever it is. That then domino affects and spreads out into everything else. Just because you wanted to be nice of, that's a little mean to give them that harsh feedback. When honestly, sometimes that harsh feedback, that is the kindest thing that you can do because it brings clarity, just like you said.
Well, and as a creative, it's really interesting that you'd say that because I think the hardest feedback to give is to creatives. Yes. And early on, there was actually one of my aha moments was there was a designer on our team. She actually joined us. They joined us as an intern. And I remember needing to give them feedback that was really hard and pulling them aside and telling them this tough thing. And they responded very emotionally. But later, I was able to circle back and say, if I told you that was great, it saved your feelings for 2 seconds, but you are not, as an artist, as a designer, like that is not what you need from me, and it is not a kindness. Yeah. And in this industry, I mean, even in the catering and hospitality business, we need artists. In the industry that you're in, if you surround yourself with people who tell you everything is great because you might have hurt feelings, you are setting yourself up for like a lifetime of basically designing flyers and sticking them on poles because you're not going to make it.
Yep. Let's get to what's next.
Okay.
We have touched on it.
You heard my stomach rumble, didn't you?
Let's let's uncover it. Let's peel back the curtain, whatever it is. Where are we at right now with everything, and what are these next chapters looking like?
Yeah, sure. So Together and Company is rolling along, and again, we have this new president, Carly, and it's so exciting to watch her develop her own generation of leaders in the organization. And what does that mean for the business? It means more opportunity for more people who find themselves really drawn to hospitality and want to know they have a home. We are really good at what we do. We do what high-end, upmarket catering, however you want to describe that, for people who still want to feel like whatever they spent, it was valued, right? And we're doing great. Like, the company's great. We made it through COVID, and not everybody did. Mm-hmm. And now I find we're really truly like working toward not just to survive, but like, what is that vision? So every year we revisit our vision. What is our long-term vision and our short-term vision? And a year from now, will we be celebrating those specific things that layer up to our values and our culture? All good. Sweet Carrot, this is so fun. So cute little brand. I know we didn't talk about it as much as you thought we were going to today, but mind blown, right? Yes. We're relaunching Sweet Carrot, and we're not going to do it in the same way that it existed, which was bricks and mortar restaurants. But it's a catering brand that's been quietly growing. And so we are relaunching it as a larger catering brand with hopes to take it way beyond regional. It'll be centered around probably spaces that you can gather. Might be a little different than a restaurant, but celebrations. And all the stuff is there, like all the raw material. We still have this great fan base of the food. It's just, I don't know, I'm getting all excited talking about it, but like, I miss it. Yeah. I miss being able to walk in the restaurant and have my little corn cake with all my stuff on it. And there's not a day that goes by that somebody doesn't say, oh, I'm just really craving such and such. And I'm like, shut up. I know. I know. But yeah, so, I mean, expect to see soon us relaunching Sweet Carrot in a way where we're really going for it outside of Central Ohio. Yeah. And our team is really excited about it. Yeah.
I love that. Okay.
Yeah.
Final couple questions.
Okay.
And then we will wrap this thing up.
Is it what am I having for dinner and what am I watching on TV tonight?
It was actually just flipped.
Okay, sorry.
TV, and actually, the third question was also, can you not beat me up before we leave?
I don't know. I feel better about and now you just reminded me that you don't watch Ted Lasso and you never waited tables.
Anything. Okay, we got to get out of here before I start getting stuff thrown at me over here. Two final things. You have shared genuinely so much amazing stuff in this today. So one, I thank you for that. But two, even if it's something that you've already talked about and you're like, dude, I already told you earlier. But like, if you were to look back at your entire journey and you were picking out like one main lesson that you feel like you learned that you would really want to share with everybody, what would that be?
Know your value system. Wherever you are in life, know what your core values are. And then use it as, I think of it as little coffee filters to pour every decision through. If it sticks, freaking throw it out. Like, know that. And you are never too young or too frenetic to stop and have that clarity break and ask yourself what it is.
I love that.
Yeah.
Now, this might, lean into the final question, but I end every one of these episodes with the exact same question. So now it's coming your way.
Okay.
So right now we're going to play pretend a little bit, and we are going to pretend that everybody in the world everywhere can hear you speak. They understand you, they can hear you, everything, right? You got a live mic attached to everybody, and you get this one big movie moment to share one thing with everybody. What do you want to tell them more than anything, and what do you really, really want them to hear?
Ask people more questions, and do not wait to speak. Ask questions, seek to understand. One of my core values is curiosity, and it doesn't matter what it is, what you are embroiled in right now. If you just stop and unlearn everything you think and listen and then relearn, it's going to be okay. Just leave space in your brain for that.
Angela, I cannot thank you enough.
Well, thank you.
For saying yes to being on the show, for sharing everything that you did, telling all the stories. This was genuinely a blast of a conversation. And I also thank you for, we talked about before we recorded, where I was like, hey, I always feel like I got to remind people up front, like, it's a two-way street. Feel free to ask any questions. And the fact that you were like, yes, I will be curious and I'm going to ask these questions made for such a fun conversation.
Yeah,
genuinely, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been great.
Where, before we officially say goodbye, do you want people to find Together & Co., Sweet Carrot? Where can they go? Do you want them to go follow it anywhere? Where can they find these things?
So we have social media accounts for everything. Together & Co., Together & Company, Sweet Carrot, both of our venues, which we didn't really talk about, the Fives and the Highline Car House.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So Instagram, LinkedIn. I mean, for me, I really love LinkedIn. I really love thought leadership. So anyone who wants to engage with me directly, so Angela Petro on LinkedIn. And then we have websites on all of our brands, Sweet Carrot, Together & Company, the Fives, and the Highline.
Beautiful. Literally, I cannot say it enough. Thank you so much.
Yeah.